All right, I'm Jotham on a mission to increase America's happiness per square foot. It's more happiness inside your house or your future house. Here with Lily Stevens, an associate broker with Remax around Atlanta. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
If there was a formula for happiness, what is one thing that would have to be in it?
I think that is going to be a very difficult question to answer because everyone's happiness is different. It's defined by the person. So some people are happy with $200 in their bank account, and there's millionaires that are not happy and they have a full bank account. So I think it just really derives from the specific person.
It makes sense. I just learned from our psychologist guest that he treats it as a verb. That's a continually moving target and not a thing to wind up at. Um, you help people in this major, life, decision, transition, and tell me what you like about it. What do you like about helping people buy and sell their homes?
So, I've always been the type of person that likes to help people and achieve goals. So, before being a real estate agent, I was actually an occupational therapist. So, it's always been ingrained in me to just help people in general. So, as far as the home buying process, I love to be able to help people to elevate their financial goals. So, I help people from rentals to first time home buyers and also luxury as well. I have multiple investors that buy multiple properties and rent them out and do affordable housing for people. So just my goal in real estate is to help people achieve what their goal is.
Right, and yeah, much different goals for someone renting a house and is hoping for their first one versus
hmm
an investor there. Any broad kind of generalizations you see on well, let's just say on the first time home buyer, right? This is it might be the American dream. It might be they put so many things onto that. Do they put too much?
Absolutely. I see a lot of first time home buyers have fear of even starting the process.
Hmm.
One, it's a big process. It's one of the biggest purchases you'll make your entire life. And two, there's a lot of known. People don't know everything that goes into the home buying process,
Hmm.
and they're afraid to take that first step. So that's a very common thing that I see with a lot of first time home buyers.
Yeah, fear. I did not respond well at a time in my life when somebody said I was, acting and my decisions were being made on fear, and I denied it, vehemently, and have come around to see some of that in myself and able to just address it. You can do a little bit different. So, uh, I came up with an acronym. FOMO is a famous one that uh, people. I mean, make $500,000 decisions, and sometimes they're doing it for the wrong reason, for fear of missing out on something. But tell me about what you think about this acronym I came up with, which is FOGTOW.
Okay,
All
explain that
right.
one.
Well, remember the Tao of Pooh, of Winnie the Pooh?
hmm
That's all I know about Taoism. So in my
Okay.
mind, it's Winnie the Pooh emerging from the fog. But that has nothing to do with it. It's the fear of getting taken advantage of. That's one of the
hmm
ones I see on the mortgage side is they want the best deal, right? But if you're down to the last, penny, it's not always about that as it is I just don't want to get screwed over in a major way.
hmm
And you gotta look out for that, especially on making giant decisions.
Absolutely.
Even as we were talking before we started recording here, you talked about somebody, a CEO wiring a lot of money to because they got tricked by AI.
Correct.
Wow.
Yes.
Um, well, what do you think about being alongside people as they're on? I mean, it's an emotional journey. I've heard, realtors get often say, I'm half therapist and then
Absolutely.
half, all of the actual real estate work. Well, how do you
Yes.
find, being alongside people on that kind of emotional journey?
I'm a very empathetic person. So I usually, at least if it's not over text message, can kind of feel and read people a little bit. I have a little bit of a talent for that. So I can kind of judge like if they're feeling anxious about something, if they're not telling me everything, those kinds of things. So Repeat the question one more time for me because I
Just how do you
started
find
feeling.
being that? You're describing it.
Yeah.
What's it like being along people on this? They go from what exploring
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
beginning to
Yes.
moving in and moving out one day.
My favorite word that I learned from another agent is nervous-sided. And it's be
Nervous sided.
Yes,
Okay,
they're very nervous about the process because it's all new to them, but they're super excited at the same time.
got it.
So it's nervous and excited together, and
Right.
that happens almost every transaction, especially for first-time home buyers, even for renters sometimes too.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite words for real estate is nervous-sided.
Well, I'd love to jump into some of that, the multiple emotions that they're feeling there. But
Mhm.
you just mentioned something about text. I want to talk about that real quick,
Sure.
right? So, I mean, used to there was face to face was all that existed, and of course, technology's changed that over the decades. But
Yes.
it's aggressively, stepped up to where there's even less, face to face, where there's less voice to voice, and next generation, communicates over text more so. What are they missing out on if you're trying to make this major purchase
Mhm.
and you are only reaching out through the internet? You don't maybe you don't trust, and so you don't want to actually get close to somebody who's going to help you. Just anything you have to say on what is being lost if you try to only do something through the what I call that the written word as
Mhm.
opposed to the verbal and mainly the nonverbal communication that happens while you're able to notice they're not telling you everything. That happens all
Yep.
the time.
Often.
Yeah, but is something being lost, or can we communicate everything via text, or what are you missing out on if you don't get face to face?
So I definitely try to do some face to face. Initial texts are fine. When I do like a new buyer consult, I definitely try to do like a Zoom call with people. And then
Okay.
that way I can go over my buyer's guide with them. They get more comfortable with you seeing your face
Yeah.
versus you're just texting somebody. You don't really know who that somebody is. They could be texting multiple people, getting different information from multiple people. So when you put a face to it, it's just part of the human mind. You may have talked about it with your last person that once you see someone's face, it's a little bit easier to trust them and trust that
Yeah.
they're a real person versus just via text. And so many things with the written word can be read one way by one person and another way by someone else. So I may say something like, in my husband's culture, they always say all the best, and they mean that in a nice way. But in our culture in America, all the best can be seen as sarcastic and as like I don't really mean this. I'm just saying
It's
this.
a corporate goodbye.
Yeah, all
That's
the best. I'm glad I don't have to deal with you anymore, kind of thing.
gotcha.
So
So
yeah,
tone, right? You can't
yes,
pick up the tone, or
exactly.
you could just guess incorrectly the
Mm-hmm.
tone when it's only
Exactly.
written there.
Yes.
Gotcha. Well, I think there's a couple of common, or at least, famously, the reasons people move, right?
Yes.
Birth and death, marriage, divorce,
Mm-hmm.
upsizing, downsizing, and the job or location. Any other? Well, you already mentioned investors, so they
Yes.
might have a different, emotional involvement. But is there any other of those kind of big reasons? And any thought on the emotional aspect of the decisions that they make on those
Mhm.
moves?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've dealt with a wide variety of reasons for people moving. Just like you said, job. The typical ones.
Yep.
One that I'm dealing with right now had a health issue, and so now they have to leave their house that they've been in for 13 years and shift to an assisted living. So for them, that is super emotional because they are leaving such a large space. It's over 3,000 square feet into a tiny little apartment.
Sure.
So downsizing all of their belongings that they've had in their house for X amount of years. And then just the stress of moving at their age, all of those things. So you become really attached to the house that you buy. You make it a home.
Right.
And then when you don't have a choice in this kind of situation, you have a really hard time letting go of that house for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things you mentioned in there. Not having a choice.
Mhm.
I want choice, and I'll take the opposite if somebody's telling me what to do.
Exactly.
But we want to be able to choose. But then also, yeah, sure. A lot of times when a conversation, we have we have a relationship with somebody through the transaction, but they have to, they kind of decide what level to trust, and they don't necessarily want to share all of those, deepest, darkest things. Sometimes people do. I think often if they maybe don't have somebody else to share it with, but being told to move, it's not even it's way beyond a house at this point, because they're saying
Mhm.
you're giving up your independence and what
Exactly.
a
Yeah. There's a
weighty activity going on there.
Yes, there's a lot of things outside of the house that is making them emotional as well that can get pushed into the house process just because it's part of everything that's going on.
Have you seen anyone make a spectacularly bad decision or spectacularly good out of emotions, overriding what everyone else, right? Everyone else in the whole scenario knew, but the
Yes.
one person who
Absolutely. Yeah. Fortunately it didn't close.
uh
But there was one person that I was working with 2 or 3 years ago, that was just so desperate to buy a house, that they were looking at a house that had foundation issues and gunshot holes in the side of the siding. And it's a single female that was going to be living in that house, and she just didn't care and just wanted to move on and buy the property just to be in something.
yeah,
So, in those types of situations, you educate and they make the final decision. And
that
fortunately,
desperation. I mean, that sounds
yes,
like is
yes, exactly.
make you
Yeah.
make a bad one.
Things happen for a reason. I'm a very strong believer in that. And the loan could not go through because the seller was refusing to turn the gas on for the appraiser. So we got out of that house. Still to this day, that person is saying, "Yeah, I really wish I bought that, but that neighborhood is declining rapidly. Houses falling apart, etc." So
Yeah.
it's a good thing that she didn't get it.
You mentioned that current client or a recent one going through the downsizing process.
Yes.
Just want to throw out a couple numbers from, we live in the most blessed time in history, right? So in 1955, the average American home was 1,000 square feet, and it had 3.3 people in it. And here we are, 70 years later. The average size is 2,500 square feet, with 2.5 people. So 300 feet versus 1,000 square foot per person. Most of the time, people want more. Have occasionally heard people say, "I want a smaller house." What have you seen along, size there? And if I'm trying to calculate the happiness per square foot, well, we're going to have to get at least 3 times happier just to keep up with, that smaller. How happy we would have been in that smaller house back in the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, any thought on somebody who's thinking I need a certain amount of space,
Hmm.
and they get to make the decision, and there may be logical reasons,
Yeah.
but any thought on emotional reasons that might be skewing them the wrong direction?
Yeah. So I have a variety of clients that either want smaller or want larger. So like I have single occupants that are looking at 5,000 to 7,000 square feet for just them.
Yeah.
And then I have one that just closed this morning that didn't want 1,200 square feet. He wanted that or less. Because to him, it was more that he had to clean, more that he had to take care of on his own. So again, I think that's just based on the person and what they're looking for.
Yeah.
I could imagine that part of that is whether or not they like tight confined spaces versus having open spaces and the fear of confinement or anything like
Mm,
that. So I feel like there's a psychological thing behind that
yeah.
on why some people would want more space and why others wouldn't. So I can imagine that being based on, past histories of what happened with certain people,
Yeah.
or not. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's you don't want it to be a prison cell, and
Right.
sometimes when you see things, I mean, you see those. You ever seen the city in China that's entirely inside one building,
Yes.
essentially?
Yes.
So, well, we'll be grateful for while we are here, that we
Hmm.
live here, and
Definitely.
not complain that we don't all have a 5,000 square foot mansion.
Yes.
And what about? I love this from your perspective of perceived space. All right, I feel way better with the tall ceiling.
Oh, yes.
Some people would
Yes.
rather have that be covered so that they can have a whole nother room, right?
Mhm.
But the big, kind of the flow out to the backyard, the visual perceived space, whether a high ceiling or looking out.
Mhm.
Anything you? I don't know what the right question might be there, but people seem to like that.
Yeah, again, I think it's a per person kind of thing. Some people don't like the tall ceilings because they can't clean it. Or I've actually even had a buyer that said, I don't want a two-story living room because it's harder to heat and cool and it'll cost me more money efficiency wise.
Yeah,
So again, I just think it's a per person kind of deal.
yeah, makes
Personally,
sense.
I like the tall ceilings. I like the open space. I don't like to feel confined.
Yep.
Um,
I try not to look at the utility bill every
of course.
month. You just you need to
Auto pay that. Yeah.
analyze it once in a while.
Yep.
The gas fireplace was a big shock this year as
Yes.
we had a really cold winter and
Yes.
enjoyed it, and then discovered how much that was.
Of course.
Any thoughts on? Let's see. A common phrase in a lot of industries is that people know, like, and trust you.
Mhm.
What is that? How does that play out for you? Do you like getting out there and being known by everybody? Is it always one-to-one referrals, or how have you made yourself somebody that people know, like, and trust?
So when you start as an agent, it's a little bit harder. But now that I'm more established, most of mine is referrals from previous clients. So trust is such an important thing to me. In fact, I have a tattoo that says trust. So
I mean, was that for your real estate clients, or is that going back to your own
no, I got it when I was 18.
childhood?
So
Okay,
yes, yeah.
it
Um,
was.
it's a
It's important to
childhood
all of
thing.
us.
Yeah, yeah, it's a childhood thing, and trust was so important. So, and I think it is, especially with this large of a transaction, you
Yeah.
need to trust who you're working with, whether it's the lender, the agent, buying or selling. You need to be able to trust you're giving a lot of personal information,
Yep.
especially when you're applying for that loan. They are asking about this, that, and the other, and what's behind your closet. So it's so important to have that trust factor in the real estate world. So
All right.
that's a good thing.
Well, and we're my last question for you, as
Sure.
we are trying to have build a toolkit that that consumers can hold in a single sheet of paper, perhaps, that just says, here's what to know, to arm yourself with as you go out into a marketing world that's always in our ear,
Mhm.
and there's constantly lies being told to
Of
us.
course.
Um, so that we want to build a toolkit that, well, a good part of it will be about trust, but what I want to ask you is just any way that you think people can have more happiness inside their home, having been in, as many homes as you have. Is there anything we could share with people that says, this is one specific thing you might be able to do that could improve the happiness you have inside your house?
Honestly, I think it's just the transition from making it a house into a home. So once you own it, put your own spin on it. If you want to paint those walls your favorite color, whether it be yellow, red, purple, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Make it a house, or make it a home instead of a house. And I think that's what really makes people happy, is when
Mhm.
they transition what they purchase into their own style and their own thing. So I've had a client tell me before that they don't think of resale at all when they make their decisions on their house, as far as renovations, paint colors, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then when the time comes to sell, then they can repaint it back to that beige or gray, or whatever the color is of that time.
Yeah, I love
And
love that.
yeah, and that's what makes them happy in their house. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, definitely. I do hear people talk about the resale value, and I'm more on this side, which is I live here now, and hopefully for long. I hope I'm where we're going to be forever. So
Mhm.
enjoy it while you're there. Well, that's really helpful. Appreciate all of your time and your insight there. Lily Stevens, associate broker, all around Atlanta. Thank you.
My pleasure.